But I just didn't like that process. And then the asset management, like managing property managers, or if you're managing it yourself. I mean, I'm glad there are humans out there that like to do that stuff because we really need them. But I don't like doing that. I'm not a great number cruncher. My partner on my fund, he's the number cruncher. That is not my skill. My skill is people. My skill is networking.
What is up, everybody? My name is Matt Drouin. I'm the host of the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast, the show to watch and listen to if you are an experienced real estate investor, maybe own a couple of duplexes, maybe own a couple single family houses and are completely mystified by the process and terrified by the process of scaling up into commercial to build a lifestyle on your terms, a lifestyle by design, which is going to be an interesting topic with today's guest, Ms. Melanie McDaniel, founder and CEO of Freestyle Capital Group, a private equity fund manager. Melanie is a former park ranger of 9 years and a Navy vet, an investor not only in multifamily, but triple net lease, retail, self-storage, assisted living facilities. And I'm really excited to talk about her first big deal, right? She was an experienced real estate investor and made that jump. And also in terms of diving into what is it, it's never really too late, right, to reinvent yourself and start a new journey. And I'm really excited about that process because mysteriously, like the little purple Bible ended up just like into her life, and it must have flipped a switch and that sort of thing. So that being said, Melanie, welcome for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. So first question is, you were born, now you're here. What happened in between?
Well, a lot of sleeping, I would say, is the big chunk of life. And then work would be another chunk of life. So I was born and raised in Utah, just blue collar family. My dad was a prison guard. My mom was a stenographer. And I was kind of raised to, go to school like the typical Robert Kiyosaki, what he says, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job. So it was very much that. And specifically for my dad, get a job with a pension. My mom was excited about me going to college, but nobody ever really pushed that. That was just my trajectory. So, I was bored. I was like a young person. I was kind of like a wise person, even as like a kindergartner. I was more interested in hanging out with the teacher than the students. I don't know why, but I was always told, you're so wise for your age, no matter what age I was. And even now, whatever. I don't know how else to be except for me. So, high school wasn't my jam, and I decided I was going to graduate a year early. I wanted to get out from under my parents' wings, travel the world, get money for college, I just wanted to figure out what was out there before I committed to college because I didn't even know what I wanted to study. So I joined the military, and I picked the Navy because I was most likely going to travel in the Navy. My first duty station was Italy. So check. That worked out well for me. And yeah, I did a lot of traveling. My ship was in the Med. We would go every month to a new port. Some months I'd hit 6 ports. So I was really getting the boxes checked on travel. So by the time I was getting out of the Navy, I just did 4 years. I decided I was going to study travel administration. That was my bachelor's degree, travel administration. And I started working on a submarine in Waikiki. And I realized it was kind of like dead end, sort of got to do something else. I ended up stepping into the park ranger world simply because my dad's wife was a park ranger. And I thought, well, that's something I can do while I figure it out. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'll go be a park ranger. And then got my master's degree. And I did that. And it was pretty fun. I got paid to go hiking. I got paid to stare at sunsets. I did all the iconic things. I fought wildland fire. I did EMT work. I did search and rescue. But I also did law enforcement, which was not my favorite thing. And let's see. Then in 2015, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that changed my mind about trading time for money versus your money making your money. So my mind was blown. I was pretty pissed that no one told me about this because I lived in California. I was making maybe $60,000 a year, $75,000 if I did a good fire assignment that year. And that's just scraping by. And I thought, is this it? Is this all my life is going to be? I'm going to save up some money, put it just in a retirement account, and one day draw on, mediocrity. Like that kind of made me mad. So I just kind of went all in. It took me 2 years to really get the knowledge to where I felt comfortable leaving that federal job and jumping into the abyss of real estate, which I did. I moved from California to Virginia, not because I wanted to, but at the time I was dating someone who got orders, and it's like I go with him and start from scratch, like really kick the baby out of the nest. That was the opportunity, or I stay in California and keep trying to do the job and do the side gig. And I've just said, you know what, I'm just all in because I can't fail because I had all this debt. I did the Rich Dad Poor Dad coaching program, the $27,000 program. I had all this debt, just enough money in my savings account to like give me like a 6-month runway, and I couldn't fail because I wasn't going to go crawling back to the government. So I did it, and it's the scariest thing I've ever done. The first 6 months were pretty rough. Became a real estate agent. That was the plan, and it was a stepping stone. I wanted to do something bigger. So I serviced mostly investors. I had this knowledge of flipping, of short-term, like not short-term rental, but single house like rentals, maybe quadruplexes. In that training program that I did, I just kind of learned lots of things. So I was very helpful as a real estate agent, but I didn't have the balls to go and actually make it happen. So I watched other people, my clients, make it happen while I was, taking notes and figuring out what the big thing was going to do. I never did any of the little things. I just kind of went to the big thing because I got to see all the landmines my investors, my clients were hitting, so I could avoid those. So I did the agent thing for a while. I did really well. My first full year of working, I made 3 times my salary as a park ranger, and I didn't have to wear a duty belt. I didn't wear a bulletproof vest to work and carry the 3 guns and the taser that I was carrying. So I thought, well, this is nice. I don't have to risk my life, and I get to make more money. So hello. What a great idea. And then at that time, I was really getting antsy to travel again, and not just travel, but live abroad and be nomadic. So I was trying to figure out, how does a real estate agent live in Thailand? And you just don't, except the way I did it. I started a team because I had so many leads of these investors wanting to get started. And I had enough leads that I could bring on a team. So when my team started making money, they started taking on the leads. I could leave and still make, some of this. It was like a 70-30 split. So I was making quite a bit of money. And I said, give me 6 months and then I'll give you the database. I'll give you the team and I'll step out. So they thought that was a pretty good deal. Worked for them, worked for me. And in that 6 months, I moved to Thailand. I launched Freestyle Capital Group with the intention of co-GPing and participating in mostly capital and investor relations. But in 2020, I don't know if you remember, everybody was doing deals. Money was falling out of the sky. Nobody wanted to partner with me because when they said, well, how much money can you raise? I'm like, well, I don't know. So they, just wouldn't partner with me. And then that's what led me to launching the fund, because if you have a vehicle where you can pool the money in the fund, then you can deploy the fund into a deal, and then there's no co-GP or anything necessary. So that is kind of the overview, but I'm sure you want to talk about when I did the first big deal and then maybe where the fund is today, but I'll shut up now and let you ask your question.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to interrogate you. But before we launch into your, the first bigger deal, it was big for you at the time. I mean, I'm kind of obsessed over this, like 9 years as a park ranger. I mean, what was the seminal moment that happened when you got, like, did you get mad enough and sick of it enough? Or was it, I mean, like, what was that sort of catalyst for you? Maybe there was a moment that you had where you may have been staring at a sunset and you're like, I can't do this anymore. Like, tell me about that.
It was a slow bleed for sure. I made just enough money. I had just enough time off. The job was just enough fulfilling I didn't feel enough pain on my own, honestly. So super personal, but I got married in 2012. And this guy came from, I guess, money. He had some trust funds that was paying his bills. And he and I had completely different ideas about money. I was super conservative, live within your means, save, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if there's money in his account, he just can't leave it there. There's something, he has to go spend it. It's pretty awful. So as much as that was pretty much the demise of our relationship, but I think he's the one that gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. So like my whole future, everything happens for a reason. And that relationship was that. He planted some seeds about thinking about money differently, not in a good way. He wasn't a wealthy person. he just had access to the wealth, and he understood, moonshot type stuff. He was a real estate agent toward the end of our marriage. So I got my license because he really sucked at it. So I helped him on the side, and then realized, wait, why don't I just do this? Anyway, so I think once I realized, oh, you can dream big. Oh, there are people that have large houses or jets or his thing was cars. And although I'm not tied to any sort of, I don't like things per se, but I do love to travel, and it does cost money. So there, it just got the wheels turning. So it was a combination of the job, not really fulfilled in that job. And then seeing that there are other people that live different ways. And I'm in California, right? I'm in Malibu, I'm in Thousand Oaks, and I'm seeing, how do these people afford these houses? Like, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it because I wasn't raised around it. So he was kind of my first exposure to what could be, I guess, or at least the dreams. It's not like he had it, but he would literally fax in his bills and someone else would pay them. That's so funny.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, the story about that book landed in, actually, it wasn't that book. It was actually Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, landed in my dad's life. He was helping, and he was working at Genesee Brewery as a general laborer, like cleaning fermentation tanks, like just awful type of general labor grunt work. And he was helping a friend of his move out of his apartment, and he left behind this book. And him picking up that book and started reading the first couple pages was what was a game changer in terms of his total mindset shift. And same thing with me. I mean, my dad was really big about, investing in your own personal development and that sort of thing. He told me to read these books like Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad, Poor Dad and How to Win Friends and Influence People and The Magic of Thinking Big and all these classics. And me as a 20-something-year-old was like, nah, you're an old man. Like, what can these books do for me? They're just words on a page and that sort of thing. And it took me having to actually, sign up to sell Amway while I was in college. That finally, these people that were in my upline, so to speak, were like, you have to read these books. And then I was like, okay, and I read them. And that was my moment too. So there's definitely this things were unforeseen things crystallize and deliver some mysterious outcomes in your life. So I love that. So let's jump into, this origin of this bigger deal we want to talk about today. It kind of came to you by accident based upon the infrastructure you built as a real estate agent. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So when I was looking at what my big thing was going to be, I stumbled upon apartments. So apartment was that's what I was looking for myself. So I was looking for some stuff at the time, but it was the side to what I was doing with the real estate agent stuff. I was in Norfolk, Virginia, which has a lot of military people. A lot of my clients were military people, and they can buy up to a quadruplex with their VA loan. They can live in one unit, rent out the rest. So there was a big movement for people looking for quadruplexes, duplexes to quadruplexes, but specifically quadruplexes. So because I had so many of these guys that wanted them, I created a letter campaign. And when you have access to the tax records as an agent, you can just pull, okay, quadruplexes built in this year to this year in this zip code. And you can get a list of quadruplexes or owners who have them, their address, and you can literally just mail them. So I think my list was maybe 50 to 80. Now I can't remember how many letters I sent them out, pulled in a couple of quadruplexes and got those to investors to be sold. But there was this one, the guy's like, well, I got a quadruplex, but I also have a 24 unit. Do you do stuff with apartments? And I'm like, oh, me. I buy those, me. I did find a buyer for the quadruplex. That was Corey. And then I kept the 24 unit for myself. But this is the deal. I didn't have any money, at least not enough to buy a quadruplex. And so, there's the three jobs in what we do. There's the boots on the ground, there's the money, and then there's kind of the knowledge. So which piece of those are you? I had the knowledge, I had the boots on the ground, I just didn't have the money. So I kind of got this, not under a written LOI, but like a verbal LOI. This guy didn't want to deal with brokers. He's just like, well, you just, you can buy it if, the price. He just wanted the specific price, which was pretty reasonable. And I said, cool. That night or the next night was the RIA, the local RIA that I would go to. And it was speed dating night. It was speed networking. And so you talk for 15 minutes or so at a table, you switch tables, and that's what you do. And there was this couple there, lovely couple, a '06 captain and his wife. And we were speed dating, and I said, I have a deal. They said, we have money. And so we talked about it, and fast forward, they were the people. And not only was he the money, but he was also the boots on the ground. Because, I moved to Thailand. We closed January 2020, and that's the same month that I moved to Thailand. So for my finding the deal, helping with getting it, closed up, and attending asset management calls just on Zoom, I got a 5%. Well, I got a 6.7% ownership. He put about $380,000 in it. I didn't put any. But when I did my coach training program, whatever, for the apartment buying, I had a partner that we split the cost of that. So we told each other we would do our first deal together. Even though I found this and could have done it without him, I brought him in anyway because I am a woman of my word. And that was a character thing that Keith, my partner, saw. And he's like, yeah, I want to work with you because, of that partnership with Drew. So Drew got his little 1.7%, and I got 5%. And then, of course, Keith got the 93.3%. But he had all the risk, and he was doing all the work. So I felt pretty good about that one. Just fast forward, I had $0 in. We did have a capital call. I probably had 1,400 in. Ended up with 90,000 at the end when we sold it. So we could talk about the details along that way. But that's the value of boots on the ground, and it was a 2-year deal.
Yeah, so let's talk about the capital stack for a moment here. And what state was this in?
Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Okay, so yeah, what was the total capital stack on this deal? Because you went to the RIA and you found this person. Did you know this person before or no?
Nope.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Was there bank financing that was brought in along with this person's equity? Like, tell me about all that stuff.
So I had to go back and look at all my numbers today to make sure I was ready for the call. So the purchase price was $1.43 million. The debt was $1.07. So that's about what, 3.8? It was around, $357 was the down payment, but of course there's, money for repairs or whatever. So I want to say it was like 385 is what we put in initially, or what he put in. And just to fast forward, that 385 turned into 1.6 million for him. Minus 385, so a profit of 1.3 million. I know. So this is not typical. People can't get real excited about this. This was kind of like, we just got lucky, because think of the timing. 2019, 2020, that's when we negotiated it and bought it at $62,000 or $4,000 a door. And then we sold it for 2.8 million 2 years later because we got a cash offer we couldn't refuse. We weren't even trying to sell it. They got my number off CoStar or something. And a lot of people called me off of CoStar. Oh, hey, we buy apartments, and do you want to sell? Just because they're calling it a database. But for some reason, these guys were a little different. I actually listened to them. They were actually brokers. They said they had a client that does short-term and mid-term rentals. They needed 24 units or under, and this was 24, and they liked the area, and it would be a cash offer. So I entertained them. We had some calls. We actually got the PSA. They put the LOI in, and I'm like, I think this is real. Because some people, it's your first deal, you'll throw an LOI in. I've done this. Come on, you throw your LOI in and you get scared and you pull out. Like, newbies, you'll do that. Just do it. Who cares? I know they say don't ever do that, but sometimes you just need to do the next step, even if you have to pull out, and then next step, you get a little bit further, maybe. So these guys, it actually felt like they were legit.
So what did this deal do for your mindset? I mean, if for me, looking at the numbers on that, and obviously some people might be listening or watching this and being like, oh my gosh, you got such a small piece for bringing an amazing deal to the table. And, there's a lot of people that would have said no to that. I mean, were those thoughts kind of going through your mind and oh my gosh, this is just chump change as part of this deal? Tell me about that. And then tell me about the mindset shift in once you kind of brought this deal full circle and how it made you who you are today as a real estate entrepreneur.
Well, it's not like he offered, right? He didn't tell me what I get. I had the deal. I made him sign an NDA before I'd even tell him about it. It's my deal, and I could find any buyer. So we worked on that compensation together, and we used very basic when you break down the GP stack, you've got who finds the deal, who's managing the deal, who's bringing the money, who's the KP. They teach us these in all of our guru training programs on how to buy apartments, right? So I just went with that model, and the value of bringing the deal to the table was 5%, and then got another whatever percentage for, I don't even know. I felt fine with it because it was my first deal. He was a seasoned guy. So he's bringing the knowledge, he's bringing the money, and he's the boots on the ground. How greedy can a girl get? Like, I'm happy with it. And could I have negotiated more? At the end of the day, I want to feel good about it. I don't want to feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I also don't want to, these are people you have to work with for many years. These are partners, right? This is business marriage. And you don't want to have business divorce, which I've had before, and it's not fun. So we all felt good about it. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know. I don't look back and think, I mean, of course, would I've wanted more and had more money? Sure. But did I do anything beyond the value that I brought? I don't know. But then I got experience. I have the story to tell. And and then I made money. I mean, I don't know. No, I don't have any issues with it.
So let's talk about you're rewinding the clock back and thinking about, because we always, through our lived experience, we can always be like, okay, well, I did this and it ended up working out for me, but maybe there's a little bit of luck involved with it, or the universe conspiring in my favor. So on the capital side of things, with this deal, what would you have done differently, and what do you do differently going forward on the capital side of the equation?
I would have loved to put money in and earn more of that equity on this deal. That's my only regret. Shoot, maybe I had at least 10,000 or something I could have put in, but I didn't. No, and this is the deal. So the lucky part of this is that we got that cash buyer out of the blue. But this deal was fine. We were going to hold it for 10 years and cash flow the thing. It was very hard during COVID. Once we closed, we weren't even stabilized before COVID hit. This is a Class C. We had some crappy tenants in there. The seller had put in some garbage. It was a nightmare. My partner, while I'm in Thailand enjoying myself, he's chasing down crackheads and people climbing out of windows and all. Though I don't know, like, just a lot of crap going on. We had our little capital call because collections were down. I think we were 70% occupied, but 50% economic occupied. Like, it was ugly there for a minute. And then it's Virginia, so the government is taking way longer than necessary to pay us back because they won't let us evict our tenants, so they have to pay the rent, but then they weren't. Nightmare, complete nightmare. So it was a little scary and hard for those first 2 years. We were just starting to get our arms around it and stabilize when we got the cash offer. That's why it was kind of hard to take, because we're like, dang, we just got it to where we might actually start cash flowing, but they gave us our 10-year number. So we're kind of like, oh, let's take that money now and then go deploy that and grow that. So what would I do different? Anytime you buy a property, there are skeletons in the closet, be prepared for them. So there's nothing, I don't think we could have done too different, honestly, when it comes to the tenants that were in there. And then the whole COVID thing, like, how do you plan for that? The good thing was we had fixed debt. It was not a bridge loan. We didn't have a rate cap. It's fixed debt for 10 years. So if you're getting started, you're buying something on the smaller end, I would say hands down, stick to the fundamentals. Do not do bridge debt, no matter how shiny it looks, because that's where all the problems happened in 2021 and 2022 was the bridge debt. Fixed debt, we could have lasted for a while. We could have kept going and going. And the little capital call we had by 1,400 was not that much, but he had to put in like 30,000 because he's, the 93%. I don't know how much it was. That my math might be off, but it was a lot more. It was a big chunk of change. How long could he have kept that up? I don't know, but it was still a solid asset. And if we needed to raise more money, I suppose we could have. We were never even close to having to do that. But yeah, I don't really know what I would have done different, except just reminding people to stick to the fundamentals. Make sure you have a lot of cash. Don't use every last dollar you have to acquire an asset. You need some runway for the unknowns. And then another thing, this wasn't a flood zone. So the flood insurance was high. And when we were going to sell our flood insurance, this was another reason like it was a blessing in disguise, because I felt like it was a ticking time bomb anyway, that either it was going to flood or they were going to get canned. They were not going to renew our flood insurance. So we passed that hot potato on to the next guy. I mean, they had insurance and they knew what they were buying, but that would be something, I guess, to think about. But I don't know. That was scary to me, to the insurance company wanting to kick us off the insurance. And nothing happened. We didn't have any claims against it or anything. It was just a really bad flood zone.
Yeah. So Melanie, let's talk about scale and the value of scale, because you've kind of like realized what you like and what you don't like in the real estate syndication investment space. And it sounds like, based upon previous interviews I've listened to, you don't really like, running the deal or even finding the deals, that sort of thing. You want to work with investors. And I think that's the beautiful thing about scaling into commercial, is that if you're running a single family or a duplex, there's not enough economies of scale there to get to compensate multiple individuals to leverage their skill sets in terms of like what their God-given talents are and what they're doing. So you realized that you only want to deal with investors. You don't want to have to go out there, kiss all the frogs in terms of all these deals and the underwriting and all that sort of thing. So describe to me the evolutionary journey that you went through to sort of like realize that.
Yeah. Once we got through buying this, the whole acquisition process of buying this 24 unit, I realized most of that process I didn't enjoy. So if you're going to schmooze anybody, I like to schmooze the investors. I don't want to be schmoozing insurance agents and mortgage, like people who are selling you something, right? So that was part of it. I just didn't like that process. And then the asset management, like managing property managers, or if you're managing it yourself. I mean, I'm glad there are humans out there that like to do that stuff, because we really need them. But I don't like doing that. I'm not a great number cruncher. My partner on my fund, he's the number cruncher. That is not my skill. My skill is people. My skill is networking. I did spend 2021, 2022, 2023 going to a lot of real estate conferences. And that is where I met most of the people, whether investors, not as many investors, but some, but all the sponsors, the lovely people that I get to meet at these conferences. I get to see them over the years. I get to hear about their track record, but also their values, their morals. When you really, in the syndication space, it's a small world and people know people and people talk. So I don't know. I've just getting started. I didn't know. I thought everybody that was on the stage was probably great, but it turns out just because they have a stage or a platform does not make them great. And it took a while to kind of navigate who I can trust and who I like. So now deals just come to me because of referrals from different service people. Like I've gotten a couple of really great deals from an auditor who audits funds, and he just knows great sponsors, or attorneys, or other syndicator friends. So now I don't even go out and look for deals. They literally just come to my email, and I pass most of them on. Like, not my thing. Nope, don't know these people. Nope, definitely don't want that one. And then you just come across a little gem once in a while, and you just like, oh, this one feels good. And then investors, most of my investors came from my real estate agent days. They were my clients that went and did their little quadruplexes and got burnt out. And now they're just like, here, Melanie, just take my money and invest it passively, please. Because people get into this business, they want to do the active side, but then they get burnt out. And they just want to be passive investors, which I would say more than half of the people end up doing that. But yeah, for me, I like dealing with the investors. I like having a sponsor bring me the deal, because, to get a deal, you send out 100 LOIs. You might get 10 that respond. You might buy one of those, right? That's a lot of work, where I get a couple of deals in my email and one of those is going to work. And then I just move forward with that. So my time is spent managing the fund, managing the current deals, checking in with sponsors, getting updates, looking at deals, talking to investors, and then kayaking or hiking or whatever else I do most of the time.
So let's talk about the niche you built for yourself, because not a lot of people would see that. Okay, I'm a real estate agent. I built these relationships with all these investors that have actively invested in deals and done everything themselves and that sort of thing. What was your what was your systems and conversion process for converting those clients of yours into actual capital partners on future opportunities for you? Specifically, like how did that conversation originally look when you were now like, okay, maybe I can't keep going back to the well every single time on the first person I met at this RIA that we did the first 24 unit deal together, but like tell me about all that stuff.
So my thing is just very relational, very personal. I know all of my investors and people who haven't invested yet, still just a lot of relationships. My database, if it gets over 300, something's wrong. I go start cleaning house. I don't know who this person is. Oh, they haven't opened an email in 6 months. It gets me excited. I'm a minimalist just in general. It makes me excited to like get names out of my database, where some people will teach you, oh, the more names, the better, the bigger database, it's just a matter of numbers. My open rate is like 74%, where some people's open rate might be 8%. Like, because when I write my newsletter and stuff, I'm telling you about my travels and funny things. I'm putting pictures in. It's personal. And I get responses. People respond to my emails. Oh, I love your newsletter because you share personal stuff. Thanks. And maybe that doesn't appeal to everyone. I'm sitting here in a tank top, right? So I could absolutely be dressed. I probably could have fixed my hair for this, but I'm just real. I'm very authentic and genuine. And it took me going through an iteration of what Freestyle Capital Group was initially. It was very corporate feeling, very great. I had like a business suit on and my business card. And then a year later, I went through a whole new iteration where it's about travel, lifestyle design, and it's about playfulness. And now I'm really just into my authentic self because I don't go shopping for investors. I don't market them. So I am not the person for a new person to teach you how to build your platform. If people want to talk about how you keep investors and meet new ones, it's about referrals and it's about just doing a great job with investors because they reinvest or they refer you. And that's how I prefer to grow it. Mind you, I don't have a $25 million fund. It's under $4 million. So I live a lifestyle where I don't need a ton of money, but I care more about my lifestyle than the money. So it really just depends on the individual and what they're trying to do with this line of work. My work and my personal life blur quite a bit when it comes to my investors. They're my friends. Many of them are my friends. I have a few investors that are just investors, but most of them are my friends.
So let's get techie for a second here. A 74% open rate is absolutely fantastic. And for those of you that are out there that may be building out a CRM or a MailChimp or a Constant Contact, one of the things that Melanie was describing in terms of going through and cleaning house on there, when you have a higher open rate, by going through that process of cleaning it up, the actual Google, the email servers like having higher open rates, so it has a less probability of your email getting into junk and spam folders and promotional folders with those people you're sending out to. So definitely clean house once in a while with your if you're using an email platform.
Yeah, and I just don't like to be spammy. I don't like to be spammed, and so I'm not going to go be spammy to people.
So let's talk about before we wrap this up here. I'd like to have some actionable advice that are investors out there that are looking to position themselves to scale up into their first larger commercial deal, and the capital part of the equation really scares the living hell out of them because they've kind of bootstrapped themselves from this point in time. What can they, and I firmly believe, and challenge me that if this is incorrect, but I truly believe that the money comes first and then the deal, not the other way around. So if somebody's going to start right now, today, this week, this month, starting to position themselves on getting their OPM in place to take down their first commercial deal, what would be your words of advice and also some tactical type of things they could be doing right now?
Well, the thing that's coming to mind right now is this, people talk about imposter syndrome, and people are like, well, how do I get over imposter syndrome? And my answer to that is don't be an imposter. So I don't think anybody needs to be raising money or gathering OPM for anything unless they know what they're doing or they're partnered with somebody who knows what they're doing. I mean, yes, we can make mistakes. Yes, we can think we know something. We don't know what we don't know, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're doing, you have no business getting anybody else's money. So, and some of that, could be education, but most of that is experience. So you can do it as a passive investor and learning. You can do it as partnering with someone who is ahead of you. But I don't think anybody should be going out and buying an apartment complex if it's their first big deal and raising a bunch of capital, especially from strangers. So how do you do that? Finding a mentor, but not just a mentor that's going to sign on your KP sheet and then disappear, but someone who's really in it to teach you and to mentor you and answer the questions, because there are things that come up that you don't even know you don't know. And especially lately, like when everybody thought bridge loans is just what we're supposed to do, look at what that cost. Look what that cost our industry, because we stepped away from the fundamentals. So having somebody that's been doing this for 10 plus years, probably 15 years at this point, because what did they just go through? How did they handle this last 2 years? That will give you a good indication. But a lot of people learned a lot too. So the first thing is just know what you're doing. Like, be really confident in that. Not false confidence, but real confidence, or partner with somebody. So that, I would say, is the first thing that's coming up.
I lied. I have another question, Melanie. You're okay with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You mentioned the capital raising space, especially in the last couple of years here. There's a lot of people that were operating when the money was raining out of the sky. And now my colleagues in the space are telling me, at least, that raising for deals has never been harder because of what's happened. And it could be that it has to do with the damage that was done, but also a higher interest rate environment and that sort of thing. So tell me what's going on out there and how you're overcoming it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to raise capital because, one, people are scared. That's starting to wean off at this point. Two, some people have money tied up or distribution stopped, so they just don't have money. Things that should have cycled out that didn't cycle out. So there's just a little bit of dryness there anyway. It's getting easier, but I feel like looking at potentially other asset classes. So if we're talking about apartments specifically, it's my least favorite asset class right now. Not because fundamentally it's not great, it is. It's just the most expensive asset you're going to buy right now. And if it's a value add deal, you're paying a lot, but you also have to do a lot of work. Where if you just have an industrial deal, you close, they pay their rent. There's no value add. There's nothing to do. And you bought it at an 8 cap. Where an apartment, you buy it at a 4, maybe 5 cap right now. And you have to work your butt off to make the business plan work. I'm sorry. Work smarter, not harder. Everyone, they're hung up on apartments. I get it. They've been great. They're fundamental. They're necessary. But there's other options out there that are actually a lot easier. You can make a lot more money. I don't know.
No, I mean 100%. We're definitely, if you look at our total portfolio, we're definitely, I guess I hate to use the term asset class agnostic, but we own office, we own retail, we own industrial, we own multifamily, and I've really gravitated towards the other asset classes because they scare other investors away. And there is, even for stabilized stuff, if you have a little bit of value add on there from a lease up play standpoint, those are tremendous deals. You can buy based upon in-place financials. And then if there's 30% vacancy there, you've already got it priced in on your acquisition. So whatever you lease up from there is 100% profit on the exit. So you can rapidly increase the value of those properties just through signing leases, really.
Yeah, I feel like the people that got burned the most are your multifamily and, office, obviously. Maybe not for our retail investors per se, but definitely multifamily. So these multifamily guys that got burned, they're like, oh, well, retail, okay, this makes sense. Let's try this, even though retail had a little hiccup there with COVID. But it just, for me, fundamentally, diversification. And I do a lot of notes, just land back notes or collateralized notes. And they love that because they get their monthly interest every month. And so it depends on your investor. Do they want equity or do they want cash flow? Do they want both? Do they need tax benefits? Do they like development because they want those big pops? It just also depends on who your investor is. So I find that I service a wide range of investors. Therefore, I need a wide range of opportunities for them. And that is what I can do in my fund because I have a customizable fund And so that's just how I do it. But yeah, I've raised quite a bit of money lately just in notes and development because they're fundamental and they're collateralized. So if they stop paying, you just take the thing, you know. Not that I ever want to have to do that because that sounds like a lot of work, but I'd rather someone just pay us.
So, Melanie, thank you so much. You've been generous with your time. If our listeners want to learn more about Freestyle Capital and also the customizable fund, where should they go to learn more and get on your education and distribution list?
So freestylecapitalgroup.com is the website. The Freestyle Capital Group is the handle for Instagram. Those are probably the best. LinkedIn, I get too much spam there, but I check that once in a while. Or they could just email me, Melanie at Freestyle Capital Group. Freestyle Fund is the fund. I'm pretty easy to find if they try.
Excellent. Melanie, we'll look forward to chatting you for a little bit in the green room before I let you go officially. But for now, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.